Would not like to disengage now. So one question I have, one curiosity, how many cars Maruti make every year? Tell me. Student from Jaipur, yes. School of Management. And whoever guesses right will get some surprise incentive also. Tell me. How many cars Maruti make every year? 15 lakhs. Not really. So I'll just check how much people prepare in terms of economic environment around us. Only company which is in the 1 million plus. I'll give you a little hint, but quick, try it. Some guesses you must try. 7 to 9 lakhs.
So 3 to 4 lakh?
3 to 4 lakhs. That was about 15 years back. 10 lakhs. I said 1 million plus, it has to be more than 10 lakhs. It is 1.3, 13 lakhs precisely at this point of time. And why I ask this question is that perhaps to a great extent you people should also be knowing that when we are perhaps looking a kind of a business context, you are going to prepare your career, start your career maybe in a 1 year time or 2 year time. Then I think one request I have is that for any such occasion where you have this kind of conference where you are going to look at interacting with the corporate world, some initiative will be helpful if we start preparing now. And to a great extent when we look at this, internet and all kinds of apps applicable, in my time it was very difficult to be in touch with the corporate world when I was studying. But in your time, it's quite easy to get in touch with and get access to all this information. Now when we talk of engagement, perhaps I'll be talking largely out of this Maruti perspective, but I'll be also talking out of our overall HR fraternity and leadership experience in the field. To a great extent, one basic context which India will have to now realize. In this entire slide you will see perhaps apart from South Africa, India is going to be the youngest population over the next 30-40 years. Youngest. And therefore perhaps one definition which I am going to use, talk about whether you call it Gen Y or young people, that is the workforce we are going to deal with now. And Maruti at the moment is working with 3 generations at the same time. People who are 50 and above, people who are below 40, and people who are below 30. And believe me, all 3 generations of people who are working with us have entirely different expectations, and their definition on engagement will be totally different. So whatever I heard in the previous panel is perfectly in line with my thinking also, but we will also have to remember one thing is that the eldest generation wants to look at long-term benefits, family, retirement, insurance, post-retirement. Engagement can be a very big link there. But the middle one, they are looking at maybe career growth. Higher job responsibility is the biggest link to engagement. And the younger ones below 30 are looking at cash. Simple, precise. And this is how it will be changing. So this is one context which is very critical for us to talk of when we are looking at this engagement perspective in any corporate today. To a great extent, when we look at this young workforce, and that includes blue collar, shop floor, unionized workers also. Sometimes we make a mistake in human resources, we only talk of white collar, and we look at HR generalist kind of strategies all through our life. Big, huge mistake sometimes we make in terms of manufacturing sector, automotive sector, or many other things including Hindustan Lever, where there is a big impact of blue collar workforce also. To a great extent, some of these perspectives when we are looking at the features, and some of the panel members are talking about it, high aspirations, third eye perspective, very different than the older generation, in a tearing hurry to get up the ladder. Somewhere perhaps there is a need for looking at this engagement perspective, where leaders will have to undergo a change, maybe relearn some of the leadership traits of the past and relearn some of the new leadership perspective. To a great extent, for your simple understanding, we look at these 3 quotients of leadership in any corporate. The vision quotient, where the leader will be expected to define the future into the present. And in case of Maruti, perhaps when we look at the visionary leadership, then we have done things which has been followed by automotive industry in India in the last 30 years. Way back 2001, the company decided that we will be now buying old cars and we will be doing some refurbishing in the old cars and then we will be reselling the old cars. So at that point of time, 4 or 5 competitors of Maruti, like Dev Motors, Hyundai, Tata Motors, they started joking that Maruti will now do the Karol Bagh agent's job of buying old cars and selling old cars. And after 5 years, 2005 onwards, it became a benchmark because the rest of the global economies, 50% of market is old cars and 50% of market is new cars, is what we read in the environment, brought it into India first, and today it's a benchmark. People who have worked with Maruti in that pre-owned cars business we call True Value have been having a very high market value in the last 10 years because all other companies wanted to cut, copy and paste and follow Maruti. That is visionary leadership, bringing the future into the present before it becomes obvious to others. When you look at business quotient, it is demanding high performance, targets and kind of rewards and penalties revolving around this concept of high performance. And Indian leadership, in our experience, is very good at emotional in business quotient. But unfortunately, the third one, and somebody was raising this question, that if an employee who has got a very good engagement with the present company on the emotional perspective leaves this company, what will happen? He or she will miss the emotional quotient of the company they are leaving. That's all. And it has happened with, as Sushil said, with DCM Sriram, it has happened with Maruti, it will happen with many other companies, but life goes on. To a great extent, when we look at this lack of emotional quotient, what exactly it means in terms of leaders who are going to manage businesses and people. Somewhere, a simple thing like appreciation is missing from their approach. And the leadership becomes more toxic. It is demanding outcome, performance at any cost, creating stress, and somewhere people are sacked and downsized, and some companies talk with great pride like GE worldwide that every year 10% of the population will be rendered into the lowest performing zone and then they will be turned out and things of that sort. The focus is on only the business part. Builder and groomer of people, developing people so that they can have career enhancement, career growth, somewhere less important. And in most of the companies, when I see that performance appraisal, when we have to talk to the employee how you have performed, help him develop for the next 2, 3 years, 4 years, is of least priority. But selling cars, making profits, looking at production review, technology review, finance review is top priority. That's the kind of lack of emotional leadership perspective in leaders we are talking about. To a great extent, when we look at Maruti, 2003, it became a private sector company. For 21 years, it existed as a government company, as a public sector company. And at that point of time, the human resources scenario in Maruti was more procedure, policy, rule-oriented, kind of a policing role, where a lot of power was expected to decide about the future of people, salaries, increments, promotions, transfers, powerful decisions. So employee used to see HR as a black box, as a bureaucratic, rule-oriented, procedure-oriented function. Last 7, 8 years, 10 years, we have been bringing in a lot of changes towards engagement. Because when we are going to look at maybe our kind of work culture, to a great extent, somewhere the previous panel was talking about, that the first principle is respect for people. And today you people may be aware that we are having one common uniform for all the employees from managing director down to the workman level. There's a light green color of trouser and shirt and a jacket. And the kind of feeling which I have seen in this company for that uniform is that element of pride, especially young people like you when they join Maruti 300-400 every year. And the first day of joining, they are given the sets of uniform which they are supposed to start doing from the second day. Second day, it is seen to be believed the kind of element of pride which is reflected when they wear that uniform. To a great extent, they are received from airports, railway stations, wherever, and every single new person is received with a small rose that you're coming and joining this company is extremely important for this company itself. Maruti may be a huge company, a very famous company, big company, but that one youngster, and sometimes the parents are accompanying to drop him at Delhi because we recruit pan-India, and then the parents see that how the child is being received. First time going out of the house maybe and going to work in Gurgaon or Delhi or somewhere is that link we are talking about. To a great extent, we also heard somebody talking about empowerment. Is perhaps company, when we look at whether it offers an environment where a person can express himself or herself. Some such perspective is where the first link to engagement starts. It can also go wrong in that first interface itself. And there is this one very funny story about Maruti when I was joining, which was a design for me to come in and bring in that private sector perspective into the company. And I was called on a particular day for a meeting with the board of directors at 9:30 at the office, head office. At that point of time, that head office was in the LIC building. It was a lease rental kind of a place for Maruti. And if I remember, it was 11th floor. And I reached there as per my kind of upbringing at 9:15, 9:20. And I was met by some lady who was some general manager HR at that point of time in that group which I was supposed to really take over. And I waited for 2 hours from 9:30 to 11:30 in a room where there were also broken chairs. That was my first impression of Maruti. And at 11:30, somebody came and explained to me that there has been some problem. And because of that problem, the board of directors are busy in handling that problem. So they will now meet you in the next 15 minutes or so. And Mrs. Lee, there is one gentleman who has to catch his flight. Can we first see him if you allow and all that? I said, yeah, perfectly fine. So that guy was met, and then 12 o'clock, I entered the conference room where Mr. Khattar, who was the managing director at that point of time, they were all sitting with their backs towards me. Conference room entry was such that when I entered, I saw the backs of 6 or 7 people, 3 or 4 Japanese and 3 or 4 Indians, Mr. Bhargav, Mr. Khattar, and 1 or 2 other guys, and then the Japanese. So I asked them that you would like me to sit on the other side. So Mr. Khattar said that, Mr. Siddiqui, you can sit wherever you feel comfortable. So I said, Mr. Khattar, I have been very comfortable in your office for the last 3 hours, doing nothing. And sitting in a room where there were broken chairs. So you tell me where I should sit. So he says, no, please, we are sorry. The ears went red, the nose and cheeks went red of all Japanese and all the people in the board sitting there. In Maruti that day. Is totally against engagement, right at the first point of meeting itself. That was my first meeting with the Maruti board. And then we had a 1-hour discussion, which somewhere went fine, and somewhere I also gave them answers that I am not a magician, that I bring down your labor cost and solve all your union problems. Maybe I'll come and see what can be done. Maybe something can be done, maybe 21-year-old company, government kind of, all the legacy. Maybe I'll not be able to do much. Even discussions went to that extent. But at that point of time, there was some discussion here about salary. At that point of time, Mr. Bhargav asked that for Maruti, the top management salaries are very low because we just came out of the public sector and there is a company law limit for managing director in PSU's case, cannot go beyond this. So all others have also suffered. So what will be your expectations on salary and benefits? So I said, Mr. Bhargav, I have never in my career discussed salary and benefits. I will discuss the role and I will discuss the expectations and rest will follow. Because I am not a beggar that I will discuss with you what salary you will give me and this, I need this much and you give me that much. Never ever I have done. Somewhere, this perspective therefore, for the top leadership to create a work culture, work environment where engagement actually comes naturally. There is nothing like a deceptive kind of a face or a hat you have to wear as a leader to engage with employees. Perhaps when I talk to you about Maruti, we don't look at anything except one simple fact. people who are working with us, people who are going to join with us, people who are going to superannuate, retire with us, are they happy with the company or not? As simple as that. And in the Japanese terms, when the Japanese organizations I worked with Toyota for 10 years, when they do the performance appraisal, it is the simplest version of performance appraisal I have seen. Is this employee cheerful? That's all. Either he's cheerful or he's not cheerful. There's nothing like 5-point rating scale and all that complication in life. So we are going to look at whether people who are going to work with us, fresh ones, whether they are happy joining us. The one simple experience is kept, that there should not be any gap in the way they see Maruti before joining and on the day of joining. Simple. So there is no point in giving a rosy picture to people at the campuses, and when they join Maruti they should get the shock of their life. Just no such processes are allowed in the company. You will know Maruti as to what is it's going to be an experience, good, bad or ugly. You will know for sure exactly this is the way I saw Maruti and this is the way I have found Maruti or joining. Also perhaps to a great extent, this is a leadership where we have brought in listening culture. Leaders, especially Italian and Indian leaders, talk a lot. They like speaking and hearing their own voice. Even God has given leaders only one mouth in 2 years. 2 years so that they should listen more, isn't it? Listening culture is actually the strength of creating engagement. To a great extent, there is a formal kind of leadership development process where people are mentored by external experts so that they develop this capability of listening to their people. And when Sushil and whenever these people were talking some of these perspectives, when you go to a doctor, and normally I have seen that some doctors are very much appreciated by patients and families. Some doctors, in spite of being very, very brilliant, are not appreciated. The doctor who is appreciated is the one who hears you patiently first for 10-15 minutes of whatever you want to express. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. And he's very sensitive, very much involved with you and listening to you. So listening culture, a leader who can listen with sensitivity and emotions is going to create a lot of engagement perspective. Also perhaps when we look at communication part or when we look at participation part, even a new graduate engineer or B school graduate who joins Maruti, by the time the 3-week induction finishes, there is an element of responsibility on him, which creates small little participation and involvement happening at that point of time itself. And to a great extent, when we look at the young people, they would like to experiment a lot. And in our case, there is even a possibility that a dummy car project also can be given to youngsters, what kind of car they would like to create, which involves roughly about maybe 20-30 million for one project, which is just sheer waste. But that is creating some little learning and some little excitement and involvement where they are experimenting, exploring and trying to really learn. Also perhaps when we look at Japan, one huge learning from Suzuki in our case to this extent is that hand-holding, coaching and mentoring, and as somebody asked from the audience, is the role of the manager, not human resources. That hand-holding, that induction, that touch point, first 12 months in our case, there are 6 touch points for a new employee. We will be meeting him off and on either between HR or the manager or the leader somewhere. But end of the day, whatever we are doing, communication or this thing, perspective here, is all going to end up into some business perspective. That end we should never forget. We are not here to build relationships in engagement. And on performance side, nothing is happening. So when we talk of some such perspective, last 18 months, Indian auto industry went down by -6%, -7%. Maruti, still in this gloomy environment, has been growing by 14% kind of accumulated performance between April and November this financial year. In fact, we are touching the highest market share in this gloomy conditions because we are doing well because of one single factor. is our people have the highest ownership of maintaining that element of pride of volumes and market share for Maruti. And therefore, a lot of high performance is coming from that stretch of engagement, of people liking the company. To a great extent, right from the CEO level down the line, there are options where people can discuss what is happening for their work life in the company. There will be also a kind of occasion where they can also have a one-to-one meeting and they can discuss their career plan, perspective, positive perceptions, negative perceptions. Some such a venue in a 20,000 strong company with very high focus on high performance is still very much respected part of the culture in the company. That is where engagement comes in, where the person is able to express himself either in a group or in an individual situation, where the top management is engaging most of the time explaining how we are going, what is the strategy, what is the direction. People are feeling involved and wanted. To a great extent, when we look at some specific HR strategic initiatives, you will be surprised to hear that so far I have not heard this in my 35 years, the concept of HR calendar. What all will happen in terms of the employee perspective, his assessment, his potential appraisal, maybe promotion, salary increase, job rotations. In our case, this calendar is published in April every year. 12 months the people can see what is going to happen when. It's all structured. It happens exactly in that month itself. It cannot be delayed. So nobody in Maruti can say that performance appraisal I will do next month. No way. That culture does not exist. It's a responsibility, therefore the concept of HR calendar. To a great extent, somewhere we are looking at, as the other panel was discussing, on psychic income for people. It's a very sensitive subject. What is psychic income? There's some of these examples when we talk of higher responsibility at a junior level, but stretched out. Somewhere we talk of perspective of flexibility for training. What kind of training he wants to do or she wants to do. Let them decide. Why HR should decide or somebody else should decide what training this person wants. To a great extent, when we are looking at an academy which is looking at a web studio, which is looking at a virtual kind of training center for Maruti expertise, web studios connected all over the country, everywhere, and he can reach out. E-modules where he can with or she can do with his or her convenience whatever course they want to do for their managerial effectiveness and everything. Some such perspective we are looking at. When we look at this training academy, a very simple thing which comes to my mind is everybody wants to improve. And there is a very old story from our own religious books. Somewhere in a village, an old man was living, and what he used to do is make cotton caps, put them in a big bag, and he would take the round of his village in a kind of a periphery. Halfway through somewhere there was a jungle. After selling half day, he will stay in that jungle, eat that little roti which he brings, take a little nap in the jungle, and then take the second half and return back to his own home. One such afternoon when he was after having lunch and having his nap, he got up and he saw all his caps stolen. He got quite shocked because that was the only kind of earning kind of this thing, enablement for him. And suddenly he saw all the monkeys on the trees, they were having those caps. So this old man remembered that monkeys copy human behavior. So he took out his, very old cap from his kurta pocket and put it on his head. Monkeys also put the cap on their heads, on the top of the tree. And then he threw down his cap in front of him. They also threw it down. He collected all the caps and happily went back. Everything recovered. As luck would have it, then he retired and his son started doing the same kind of routine. But he told his son at the start that, look, remember this little incident. This will help you sometime. So this is the way you can recover if some such thing happens. Sheer coincidence, in the jungle, after having this little roti, this chap was sleeping, and after he woke up, he saw all the caps gone. And again, when he looked here and there, all the monkeys, they were having those caps. So the son remembered his father's training, and he took out his own cap from his kurta pocket, he put it on his head. Monkeys also followed exactly the same. He threw down in front of him. Monkeys did not throw the caps down. They started revolving the caps. So the son thought that something not happening. So he again tried. He again put his cap back on his head. They did that. They put the cap on their respective heads. Again, he threw it down. But again, they did not throw the cap down. In fact, seeing his frustration, they started smiling and doing the same, rolling the cap on the floor. He tried 4 or 5 times and nothing happened. Nothing recovered, so very frustrated, and then he came back. The moment he entered, he started sharing his anger with his father. His father said, just cool down, have a glass of water. He said, what kind of training you taught? This rubbish, absolutely doesn't work. He said, no, I tried my best, but maybe the monkeys, their forefathers trained them in much advanced, oracle and that kind of stuff. To a great extent, any person we think that he should be engaged with the company, he would like to grow every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. So very high investment when we talk of this academy. It's a project worth 50, 60 crores in phase 1. We'll be going up to almost 1,000 crores in 3 phases. That's the investment we are talking about. Maruti's university concept for development of our people. That's the kind of investment and engagement we are talking about. To a great extent, there is one small thing, if you look at in our case, there is nothing like firing people, rejecting people. There are 3 tracks. People who are brilliant, can compete, can be really moving on the fast track. People who are absolutely normal, fine on the normal track. People who are missing the bus for some reason, they can get into the extended track. There is nothing like rejecting people or telling people, criticizing people that you are a reject, you are no good for our company. That's not the concept. It's somewhere building engagement in all kinds of people who work for the company. And believe me, that if there are all fast-track people in the company, that company will finish in 5 years. So we need a combination of employee population. And solid citizens also, when we look at extended track, they create a very big contribution to Maruti. So when 80-90% people are moving the company, then the company moves. 10% of the people cannot move the company, literally, when we look at this growth perspective, momentum, or really looking at future challenges. Somewhere perhaps employee feedback is very critical in creating, crafting policy, rather than company telling them that these are the policies. Some of those examples on the top 5 are people, young people who suggested what kind of HR policy framework the company should bring in. People who are engineers want to do their MBA or MTech, is they suggested. People who are shop floor workers, ITI, would like to do a 3-year engineering diploma, that is the policy mentioned on the top. Not what I decided or the company decided. That's another perspective of long-term engagement. To a great extent, we look at this dipstick and engagement survey. We also look at some other perspectives which are beyond work. People who are likely to really contribute to NGOs and kind of social perspective, they feel very grateful to the company if this urge is satisfied. And it is not old people. Again, I am talking of young people. So in our case now, last 2 years, we have started working with communities for young, fresh people joining Maruti for 1 month as a compulsory experience. It has nothing to do with money, it has nothing to do with job, it has nothing to do with Maruti, but they would like to work beyond work. If somewhere we look at this perspective. Then we look at a kind of a bouquet. All kinds of people have got different kinds of needs. Somebody who's doing well in it, sports, is very happy engaging with Maruti. Somebody in workers, very much interested with cultural talent, they're very happy there. It's a kind of a bouquet perhaps if we look at. There is somewhere also mentioned a family day, family visits. Today when I was leaving Maruti, there was 40-50 families coming in to visit our place, our own employees, their mother, father, wife, everybody. And when we talk of engagement, then this procedural part, eligibility part, HR will have to throw off. Because when this concept I talked 2005 that we should invite families to visit Maruti, then my HR colleagues were asking, boss, what will be the eligibility of family? 1 wife, half mother, half father, what? 1 son, only 1 daughter. No definition. He wants to bring his uncle, let him bring. Wants to bring his father, let him bring. Wife, whoever he wants to bring, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, no problem. Don't get into these kinds of procedural things, is where engagement perspective is built. For years, somewhere we are looking at what it results. I am giving you only one example here, what it results into. This is roughly about 411 crores saving from the Kaizen scheme itself in Maruti, where employees are giving small suggestions for the well-being and improvement of the company. But one caution for young people, perhaps when you people are looking at all the time this money perspective, job title perspective, and in most of the campuses in the last 10-15 years, when I evaluate where Maruti will go for campus recruitment, this one qualitative perspective I see myself. If they are doing day zero, day one based on the quantum of money being offered by the company, I reject that campus straight away, including some top ones. Because those people are of no use to Maruti. And some such perspective in life, a rat race, getting after money, job title, is professionally going to lead to accidents. And one such little perspective is there in my thinking, which I read somewhere, and I picked up that small piece. A young guy who was getting into this medical profession for handling these mentally ill people, he for the first time part of his course was supposed to visit and spend some time in a mental asylum somewhere. So when he went there and he met the senior doctor, so he said that first we'll give you a brief and then we'll take you for a round, then again a brief, then lunch, then second round and all that kind of stuff. For him, first time getting into a mental asylum was a challenging experience. What he saw in the first round, some guy, little bit of wound and torn clothes and all that, running here and there. So he was very curious. Obviously, he asked the senior doctor, what exactly is the background of this patient? So he said he wanted to marry a girl, Lucy. And therefore, if you see, observe him for 5 minutes, he will be continuously repeating that name, shouting, silently saying, or whichever way, Lucy, 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 all the time. So he observed, same thing happened. So he says, what exactly happened? He says, he could not marry Lucy, therefore he got mentally ill and he treated him. Anyway, then they had a briefing session, other doctors met, then lunch, and then post-lunch, second round. And there he saw another guy who was badly wounded, blood coming out from a number of places and absolutely clothes worn out and everything. But one common thing was that he was also running here and there, he was shouting, Lucy, Lucy, Lucy. So he became all the more curious what happened to this one. So the doctors, again, quietly told him that you forget about it, let us go with our round. And then he says, please tell me, what was the background of the second patient? He says, he was also in love with Lucy. Oh, I see. But Lucy must be a very beautiful girl. Oh, yes, yes. Then what happened? He says, he actually married Lucy. So, in Maruti, we talk about this kind of story in the induction process itself. Believe me, 35 years I have never ever discussed money with whichever company I have worked with, and I have worked with for 4 companies in 35 years. But if I look at capability, it will come from the learning. I look capability, it will come from taking higher responsibilities. And I look rewards and recognition, it will come with the kind of attitude and value add you bring to the table. You don't have to really worry about what exactly I'm going to get out of it. To a great extent, I would like to really quickly finish this discussion here, but there is one small quote which I got through our dealers conference somewhere in Macau. And one of the gentlemen we called at that point of time was Air Asia founder, managing director, who came and addressed Tony. And now he's coming into India. And he talked about this quote, and it really touched me in terms of the engagement perspective. And somebody asked this question, it should not be HR responsibility. It is not HR responsibility. But yes, HR brings in a kind of a larger governance perspective, leadership development perspective, therefore engagement is also big with HR. 95% of my assets drive out of the front gate every evening. It is my job to bring them back. And that is the concept of happy employees. That is the concept of real engagement in my perspective. However, it's a kind of a subject which is perhaps to be experienced when we talk of leadership roles, when we talk of corporate culture, and to a great extent perhaps it should result into high performance. So I wish you all the very best, and maybe I hope you do well when you join your career. And when you are doing well, you will be definitely needing cars, so please buy Maruti cars only. That's all I want to do. If you have any quick questions, I am very happy to answer them.
Good evening, Mr. Siddiqui sir.
Good evening, sir.
This is Tamil Selvan from Tamil Nadu. On the part of visionary leadership. Today, our RBI Governor, Rajan sir says, Raghuram Rajan, make in India for India. Right. In Tamil Nadu, we are facing a peculiar issue of Nokia manufacturer. If something goes wrong with Maruti, or some other leader thinks Maruti is not good for our country, what will be your person?
But first let me give you a little perspective with a small story, and then I'll come to your question, right? Somewhere in the UK, a lady teacher was handling some 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. So she said that today the class will have no studies because we have been studying for the past 3 months. Today we will only have puzzles, and every puzzle will give me the right answer, and I will give you 25 pounds sterling straight away. So we'll enjoy it through puzzles. The first puzzle she raised, who has been the greatest saint, greatest living saint in the world? So some Scottish boy raised the hand, ma'am, I have the answer, and he said, St. Andrew. The teacher was very happy. Wonderful, Jignesh, fantastic. How did you guess? Oh, here goes the prize, 25 pound cash. But tell me, Jignesh, how did you find this correct answer? Jignesh said, ma'am, heart to heart I knew it was Lord Krishna, but business is after all business. Maruti, to a great extent, is not a company which is being run by us for today. What is likely to happen for Maruti in 2019-20, we will be looking at 2 million, 20 lakhs, and we will be looking at a 45% market share. And we are quite sure we are going to reach it by creating some new leadership perspective. And one example I can share with you is Celerio, a small car, and we dared to introduce automatic transmission in Celerio, which no company has ever visualized. And it became a runaway hit. And today every company is offering small car automatic transmission following Maruti. Somewhere that kind of leadership vision has to be there. Nokia, fortunately and unfortunately, was not able to see the future today. It was seen by Samsung and Apple and everybody, but believe me, Nokia failed to see the future before it became obvious to the company. There is no comparison between what happened to Nokia in Chennai and what will happen to a company like Maruti. This company started as a government company in 1982, became a joint venture between government and Suzuki Motor Corporation Japan in 1992, 10 years, and 2003 it became a hardcore private sector Japanese multinational, 360 degrees shift in terms of change. In London I was addressing EDF Energy, kind of a public sector company which has now become a private sector company. They have still not been able to make successful this change in spite of 22 years of existence after this transition. We had nailed, nobody even remembers that we were a government company at one point of time. So to a great extent, creating that new curve is where the organization life cycle will give you, instead of stagnation and death, will give you another life of 50, 30, 40, 45 years. So roughly we see 40, 45 years is the one life cycle by which an organization will die. Then either you create a new curve or you are going to die for any reason. It happened with, he's talking about DCM. I did my initial career 14 years with the DCM group, but the company where I worked doesn't exist anymore. Where did it go? Fantastic company when I joined 1983. Doesn't exist. Because they just could not see the future. As simple as that. So what perhaps we look at, apart from this engagement perspective, is simple thing. Top leadership in Maruti will look at 3 simple things. One is simply managing revenue. So I know where we are going to end 31st March 2015. There is no confusion in my mind what volume, what market share, 7% operating profit, and what will be the PBT and what will be the net profit. No confusion. That is not our issue. Our issue is 15-16, what will the new government, new budget in 2015 February? What could be the permutation combination? So we are preparing for action plan A, backup plan B, backup plan C. And one such query I will ask all of you. How many cars Maruti should make diesel out of 14 lakhs? And how many petrol? Tell me. Anybody? We have been struggling with this question for the last 3 years. So 3 years back, 72% was diesel preference. Petrol went down. We were predominantly a petrol company. So we had to really gear up our diesel capacity. Diesel capacity for one plant, for one engine, is roughly about 1,000 crores. 250,000 a year kind of thing. Today, my question is, diesel prices have gone closer to petrol. So now there is no such gap. It's about 10, 11 rupees gap compared to 30 to 33 rupees. And diesel cars are 1 lakh costlier than the petrol version, same car. How much cars we make out of 15 lakhs? Diesel, and how much petrol? That's where envisioning the future into the present also helps simply managing the present. Please, tell me.
I think not more than, out of 13 lakhs, not more than 7 to 8 lakhs. Why? Because diesel is still managing to have a cut of 11 rupees between petrol and diesel. And the future says biodiesel is going to come up and the diesel prices will flash down.
So we are looking at a situation very simply where it will be like Europe and US, that diesel price will be same like petrol price. No difference. So we are looking at Maruti, 55% at the moment, petrol cars, 100% correct, and 45% diesel cars. It may settle down at maybe 65-35 in the next 3-4 years. Diesel will go down to 35%. And that's how perhaps we move. So 3 top things in our leadership mind: simply managing the present, capability to selectively delete the past. Very difficult. Very difficult for deleting the past. You would like to cling to it, hold on to it. What I did last 10 years, I will continue doing and I will expect differential results. Definition of being insane. Capability to selectively delete the past. And third, as I said earlier, envisioning the future into the present. Before it becomes obvious to you. Any more questions, please?
So,
Please.
so how is Maruti helping its dealerships in employee engagement and also its spare part providers as well?
Yeah, not spare part providers, because they come as a distributor's chain. They are basically people who are small business entrepreneurs, so they work with 4 or 5 people, so there is nothing much of engagement there. But dealerships are big companies, and this effort was done, again I am saying, envisioning the future into the present. In 2005, Mr. Jagdish Khattar was at that point of time the managing director. He said, Mr. Siddiqui, we have to do something about the HR function maturity for our dealership companies, because 5-7 years from now, people will become the most competitive, kind of resource for a dealership. And at that point of time, perhaps we were looking at this little activity of call centers, BPOs coming in and picking up people from dealerships, graduates and all that. So we did that exercise at that point of time, sensitization sessions with the leader CEOs, and bringing them in par with our understanding of how to handle people. And it was quite a strenuous exercise for us, because they are people who have come up on their own knowledge and big business investments. But what we did in 2005-06 is paying very rich results now, because all Maruti dealerships today have got a professional HR manager managing the entire HR function. First in the country. Then it was followed by Tata Motors and then Mahindra, and then they were asking me, Siddiqui, how exactly you did it, what was the design, what was the template. We showed it. There is no such problem.
And how can technology help in this? Like mobile application which might be launched very soon by Maruti for dealers. How can that help them in engaging their employees better?
To a great extent, I don't think mobile has got any role in this thing, but I'll tell you one simple example, people were discussing family, I also mentioned family. During that stint dealing with dealer CEOs, I could see that the incentives which they give to the salespeople and the rest of the dealership people are actually conveyed in a disincentive fashion. Because as if very tough incentive, and it is made to be very tough, very negative. So while hearing, the dealer sales executives used to feel that nobody can achieve this, forget about this incentive, I'm not going to get it. We created a shift and we made it incentive for people to get hooked to it, attached to it emotionally and financially. And one such emotional look was created by one dealer, not by us. He called his people after this session, I believe, and gave them photocopy of the incentive check to their wives in a small 1-hour function at the dealership. That if you work hard, you will get this 15,000-20,000 extra. The photocopy of that check I am giving in advance to your wife. Check is dated today when we are talking maybe 31st January. Now you believe how much pressure will be there on that guy to achieve it. Otherwise he will be proven a failure in front of his wife. It worked. So connecting emotionally, connecting meaningfully is where engagement will trickle in. So I'm really delighted that I could make it this evening, and thank you very much for inviting me.